Where you want to go? except for a dream or two. I even count my sheep. Funny how she can love singing. I should go without sleeping. I should go around weeping. I've never found someone should go around with me. I've never found someone as lovely as you. I should This open session of the Board of Education is called to order. Mr. Hertz, would you be good enough to lead us in the flag salute?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have an approval of the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda minus item 14P.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mr. Goldstein. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Superintendent Brady, do you have a report of closed session action?
I do. The Board of Education in closed session voted unanimously to support a settlement agreement with K-12 teachers related to OAH case number 201-704-0106.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do we have any requests to be heard? Thank you.
Yeah.
We do indeed. Well, here's a request from David Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
Good evening. I couldn't get this on the board agenda because we've had a very busy weekend with our students. Just to let you know, today our boys tennis team won the Ocean League tennis championship, so we're very proud of them. They had an undefeated season. But besides our athletics, what we've done and the academics that our kids have done, we had a big weekend all over the country. And before I start that, Sam, congratulations on University of Chicago. Our Madrigals traveled to Florida for a clinician and singing, and they had a great time. And Disney World presented to them the mouse. So we have this presented by Disney World 2017 to the Beverly Hills High School Madrigal Singers, Disney Performing Arts. So our singers went over there and did a great job. Along with that, our kids went to Skills USA for the West Coast, and there were 2,500 people there, and our kids did okay. We ended up gold medal and state champions in audio radio production, state champions in broadcast news, and state champions in community service. So we cleaned up down there. It also means we have 9 students, 9, going to the national championships at the end of June in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's been a good week for Beverly Hills High School, and I wanted to take that to let the board know. Thank you very much.
LHC?
Dear Board of Education members, district administrators, members of the community, good evening. I'm Telly C., high school special education teacher, president of the Beverly Hills Education Association. It's been 2 weeks since I last addressed you, and still 23 of our colleagues affected by layoffs continue to wait and be uncertain about their future. Many have interviews, and some even have job offers already. Every second matters, and I implore you to bring them back as soon as possible. We all know the money is there. We are creating new administrative positions. We are increasing the salary for existing administrative positions. We all know people will retire and resign. If we lose any of these great educators unnecessarily because of this layoff process and ordeal, the consequences to our district and our children will far exceed any temporary financial inconvenience we may face. I also want to speak to the 2 resolutions regarding the reduction of instructional assistants, both in staffing and in hours. If both resolutions are approved, this would mean the elimination of 12 IAs and a reduction of 340 hours of IA work per week. Assuming all IAs earned $17 an hour and work the full 39-week schedule, this would be a savings of just $223,000 per year. I am concerned about these resolutions because historically the problem that we face as a district is hiring enough people to fill an IA shortage. As a special education teacher, I've spent half of my career here without an aide because the district couldn't find one. As with certificated layoffs, the problem of overstaffing for IAs can be solved through natural attrition. If and when one leaves, simply do not replace them. Do this until you have the number that you desire. But to cut 12 IAs and to reduce the hours of an additional 6 adds to the damage already caused by the layoff of 23 teachers. There are better ways to handle the situation, which I encourage you to consider. Thank you.
Carol Cornea? Did I pronounce it right?
Hi, good evening, members of the board, Dr. Breggy and Dr. Tedford. My name is Carol Cornier, and I'm the president of the Instructional Assistant Unit. I'm here to address layoffs. This is the first time in history that we've ever had layoffs in my unit. This is my 20th year in the district. Layoffs are unheard of. This has never happened before. It's the most bizarre thing. Usually there's a lack of instructional assistants in my unit, and everyone has to scram to cover each other. We have kids with IEPs that by law you have to comply and provide those services. I understand that the district has a tough decision to make. The SERP could have been offered to classified employees as it was last year, potentially saving 5-8 jobs. I just want to give you a little perspective coming from someone who represents close to 100 employees. In my unit, we have certificated teachers. We have IAs that hold master's degrees in education. We have IAs who have degrees in early childhood education. We have world-renowned artists, which I'm very proud of. We have mothers and fathers that depend on this income, and for some, it's their only source of income. So, speaking from experience, what I foresee happening, people will be noticed. The job hunt will begin. Come August, you may have new special ed students, and not enough of us to cover. The district then goes on to hire, and it takes several weeks to get through the interview process and fingerprint clearance. I understand there's a 39-month rehire list after this exhausting process. If you lay me off, I'm not going to sit around and wait until August to find out if you're going to bring me back. I'm just going to go look for another job. I hope you understand that the IA unit is a backbone of special ed. Without us, the system fails. Chaos. It's total chaos. Even when there's 3-4 people absent on one campus at a time, it is total chaos. Please reconsider this decision. Whatever amount of money you think you're going to be saving, are those savings really worth the potential problems that the district could incur? Thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina Halabi?
Hello, my name is Sabrina Halavi. I'm a recent alumna, Beverly Hills High School, the Madrigal Singers, Medical Science Academy, and Academic Decathlon. And I've come here today to vouch for a program that has given to me one of the most transformative experiences of my life. I was a junior when I joined Acadeca after a rough, emotional, and academic 10th grade of almost straight C's per semester. Truly, I didn't know what to expect. I knew the team learned stuff, But when I joined, I received the complete spiel that there was one overarching topic per year, 10 subjects, 50 questions per test, and 30 minutes to complete the test. And that's when the Latin prefix, deca, of decathlon kind of clicked. I began to make friends, and trust me, the people who joined this group are impossibly incredible. We started to forge a camaraderie, a sense of a common goal, a team. I learned about renewable energy, wrote a speech about the virtue of the pun, and fell in love with the nuances of Indian music. I studied after school and after hours with the group till the late evening, and I began to feel more motivated in my daily academic endeavors. My grades rose and my mood improved. When competition season was approaching, I remember thinking that if we didn't place, it would be okay because of all the program has given me. Thankfully, we ranked among the top 12 in the nation. By my senior year, I was enrolled in 5 AP courses and was a straight A student. I told the same story I am telling you on my college applications in less than 600 words, of course. Consequently, I was admitted to Bard College with a $50,000 annual merit scholarship, in part due to my commitment to this intellectual enterprise. If there's anything Academica necessitates, it's commitment and diligence and hard work, all skills that will go long ways in these students' futures. This diligence does not emerge once a week through optional club meetings, but through a class with time and resources allocated to its success. In no other way can students be part of the immersive experience that makes Academica so influential. Academica transformed me and so many of my friends into great thinkers, people we could be proud of when we looked in the mirror. The thought of depriving any students of the life-changing experience I was given, of that sense of purpose that is so critical to high schoolers, is truly distressing. Each of you has the power to give future students all that this program has given me. So I ask you to please use it. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations. Orachat Jian. She's speaking for 3. She has 9 minutes.
I actually have a 6 minutes, and I think somebody was supposed to give me time. So
Sure.
can it be contiguous? Thank you.
Yes.
So can I have, and then I think 2 people were supposed to give me time, so I was supposed to get, so I can get 9 minutes?
Yes.
You have 9 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. My name is Orachat Chu. I am the mother of a former academic decathlon member. I'm here to advocate the continuation of the academic decathlon program at the high school. Sorry, can you all see that?
Sure.
Okay. What's happening to the academic decathlon for the upcoming year? There's no class, no recruiting, no coach, no budget. Why should we save the academic decathlon program? Academic decathlon is the most prestigious academic competition in the USA. It is the only comprehensive academic competition in the USA consisting of 10 college-level subjects. Through teamwork, each participant finds courage to overcome any fear and inspiration to master all 10 subjects like a decathlete. In the process, the students will develop a deep respect and aptitude for knowledge, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and hard work, and become a lifelong learner. Academic decathlon is an alternative sport competition that celebrates academic achievements and honors athletes of the minds. It is It is a competition that welcomes students of all academic achievement levels and give them a chance to dream of a championship and be a champion. This is where you can witness C, D, or F students perform miracles. This is where A and B students can continue to excel. This is where no child left behind. Lastly, our academic decathlon team has been the most successful team at Beverly Hills High School. How does a great academic decathlon program benefit our high school, our district, and our community? It brings us all pride and prestige. It improves our academic reputation. It lifts our academic culture. It attracts more students to the district. It is a tiebreaker for college applicants. It helps students of all GPA levels prepare and get into a four-year university. Each year, 100% of the decathletes have been accepted into a four-year university versus just 50% for the high school overall. Here are some of the universities that have accepted our decathletes: Amherst, Brown, Chicago, Johns Hopkins, UC Berkeley, UCLA, Vanderbilt, Yale, USC. So these are great universities. How has our team done at competitions? Beverly Hills has 11 team championships in LA County, as you can see in the highlighted yellow. There have been about 50 schools competed each year. 6 schools have won in the past 35 years. Out of the 6 schools, Beverly Hills is one of the 2 schools that have dominated the competitions. Beverly Hills has 2 individual championships in LA County, in 2013 by Jenny Xu, in 2004 by Ariel Hedge. How did Beverly Hills do at state and national? In the last 5 years, we have won 37 medals at state and have received first place awards in math, economics, social science, speech, interview, and essay. At the 2015 national, we won 5 medals. In the online national competition, we have earned top 3 place awards 17 times, including a record of 6 awards by Sabrina Halavi in 2016. These are our results since 2011. I'm sorry, I can't read that. Okay. As you can see in the highlighted yellow, we swept the awards in 2013 at LA County, not only with the team championship, but also with the top 5 scoring individuals being from our high school, which no other school to date has been able to repeat. We had the most recent best years in 2013, 2014, and 2015, where we were in the top 5 teams in the state and in the top 10 teams in the nation. I'm sure we can make a comeback in 2018 if we care enough to procure the same resources that the winning years had. We might not have won titles like Granada Hills, but for a school that uses less than 5% of the resources that Granada Hills uses, we have done pretty darn good. I'm certain if we had the same resources, we would be number 1, but that's not the point here at all. The point here is just trying to save the program. Our students are exceptionally smart, and some of the most dedicated academic decathlon coaches are right under our nose. Let's work together to preserve the chance for our students to continue academic excellence that our high school, our district, and our community can be proud of. Don't let anyone wonder where Beverly Hills High School has gone. Don't let our past achievements become unattainable for future generations. Let us now reflect on some of the past proud moments that our school has achieved. Here's our award photo from 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, And here are some news articles on the team that here we were the top 1%, and this is when we won the LA County in 2013. And this is when the top 5 decathletics were from our school at LA County. And this is back in 2013 when the board gave academic excellence certificate to the team. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
I just want to thank you for such a wonderful presentation, and that was very well put together, and we really appreciate that. And I want to apologize on behalf of the board and the district if there was some communication that was put out there that that the program was in jeopardy of any kind. But I want to be really clear that this is not a program that has been discussed at our level or publicly that we're aware of at all that would be in jeopardy of being cut. So I'm not sure where that happened, but I just want to be really clear about that. There has been no discussion about eliminating the program.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't know. This was lovely and really good and a great reminder of how strong the program is, but I'm not sure how that happened. So
is there a need, because I have a speech from my daughter, is there a need to do any more, or we're done?
No, I think not on the same
Okay.
subject.
All right, okay.
we are absolutely keeping the program.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me log out.
Now, we have 2 more on the same subject. Grace? Billy? And Joan Johnson. Would you like to speak? We're not gonna-
Just a general question. Is it going to become a club or a class next year?
It's the same. It's the same as this year with
Because
it being a class.
what we were hearing is that it's going to be a club, and if you make it a club, and it's not going to.
There hasn't been any discussion that we're aware of that there would be any changes at all in the way that it's being delivered today would be the same way it would be delivered next year. And I'm really sorry if that somehow was misinterpreted along the way. We're really sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andre Law?
My name is Andre Law. I'm the president for the OTBS, which is our Office Technical Business Services Unit here at Beverly Hills High School. I'd like to address the board, Board of Education, district administrators, and the BHUSD staff. Per Ed Code, layoffs can only be implemented for lack of funds or lack of work. Today, there's a layoff resolution that is impacting 2 of our OTBS members. However, the district has not proven that there's a lack of funds to justify the layoffs. For example, the district has recently created 4 new administrative positions: the Assistant Superintendent of Construction and Facilities, Mr. Jackson, the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, the Director of Communications, and the Human Resources Coordinator for an additional conservative cost of $48,000 per month. Today, we found out that the district is and has created a new OTBS position titled Administrative Assistant 2 at a salary range of $5,000 to $6,000 a month. Additionally, the district has set aside funds for an OTBS position that has been vacant for the last 2 years with the salary range of $3,600 to $3,900 a month. Clearly, the district can afford to create an OTBS position for 1.5 times the current salary of the guidance technician, which is in jeopardy, at $3,600 a month, and the textbook room technician will be cut 1 month at $3,900. So we're able to maintain a budget for a vacant position that has been vacant for 2 years. We clearly have the money, and we can't justify the layoffs. Is there a lack of funds? because there's plenty of work. Thank you.
Sharon Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, and thank you for pronouncing my name right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sharon Kirkpatrick. I'm a special education here at the high school, a teacher here at the high school. I also taught at Hawthorne, at El Rodeo, and a couple of years at Manhattan Beach. And I'm concerned about the layoffs of the instructional assistants because and I feel that I'm in a very good position to address this because I have been jerked around by this district for the last 4 years about lack of aid support. So I have had aid support off and on during that time, and I am acutely aware of how much better I am able to serve my students and to support my students when I am supported. The IAs at this school are a vital part of the special education program. They provide instruction support, they provide behavioral support, they provide me with a chance to use the bathroom sometimes. It gets to that. It really concerns me that we are going to be laying some of them off. My bottom line is being able to support and serve my students to the best of my ability. And when I have consistent, dependable aid support in my classroom, I am able to do that. I have been very concerned this year because I have one class that I am shocked that a parent has not sued the district over violation of what's in their IEP, because you cannot call 21-to-1 small class instruction. But that's what I've been living with this year. And every one of those parents has a right to say something about it. But I have been doing my best. My students are doing well. Last semester, every one of my students passed their geometry classes in both my geometry classes. This semester, there are a couple that are a little close. But again, I could not do my job adequately without good aid support. And I just hope that you will also make your bottom line the solid support of our students. Because I think the IAs are a huge part of that. And I mean, again, my bottom line is to support and serve my students, and I hope yours is too. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Faludian. Joshua, you have somebody else's time, so.
Thank you so much.
4 minutes.
So, Mr. President, I'm a second semester senior here at Beverly. I'll be attending UCLA in the fall. And thank you so much. I've had some time to be nostalgic and reflect upon my 13 years here, both at Hawthorne and Beverly. And I think I've had the pleasure to be taught by some of the sharpest educators, administrators, and coaches. And right now, I'd like to thank them all one by one. So without further ado, Miss Jory Lindsay, Miss Anita Naiman, Mrs. Kathy Quiring, Miss Kim Timmerman, Miss Rachel Brattle, Miss Joanna Smith, Mrs. Allison Nissenson, Mr. Brad Harris, Miss Jane Galetko, Miss Kelly Curtis, Miss Daniela Camp, Miss Lori Schwartz, Mr. Jeffrey Harris, Miss Janet Lambert, Coach Mike Lambert, Mr. Bob Bailey, Mr. Benjamin Stokes, Coach Heather Ash, Miss Shalani Fernando, Miss Krista Gunhines, Miss Rachel Marcus, Miss Beverly Mentz, Mr. Mark Ernstein, Miss Georgianne Yanity, Dr. Alex Chernis, Mrs. Kathy Schaefer, Mr. Mark Fuhrer, Dr. Jennifer Tedford, Mrs. Kalina Moore, Mr. Bill Hyatt, Mr. Tim Briggs, Prof. Joseph Isaac, Mr. Leonard Mitchell, Miss Marla Weiss, Mrs. Lynn Hanady, Miss Ileana Medina, Miss Michelle Stern, Miss Heather Godin, Coach Tricia Fagan, Coach Artem Gavorkian, Coach Miguel Puente, Coach Ahmad Hosseini, Coach Donald Graham, Coach Stephen Fixery, Coach Alex Reisfeld, Mrs. Malia Warner, Ms. Edna Baruchim, Ms. Jane Wortman, Ms. Colleen Lynch, Mr. Christopher Boucher, Mr. Jose Peixoto, Mr. Roel Hinojosa, Mr. Kevin Bowers, Mr. Jeff Berkeley, Mrs. Jennifer Goolsby, Mr. Dave Jackson, Mr. Luke Pavone, Mr. Phil Winker, Mr. Mark Mead, Ms. Celeste McDonald, and a very special thanks to both Ms. Joni Garrett and Ms. Barbara Bader for guiding me over the past 4 years. And with that, I would yield back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those are all the requests we have to be heard for the board. So the agenda hearing period is closed. Now we have an accommodation recognition. Superintendent Brady?
We're very fortunate that we have such a strong relationship with our city and our youth in government program, and Dr. Tedford will give an intro about this recognition.
We are so excited tonight. For over 30 years, our 8th grade students have participated in Youth in Government Day, in which our City of Beverly Hills graciously hosts our students to teach them about the relationship between school and city government. We are fortunate to have our coordinator on this project, Ms. Shireen Lusang, present the essay topic for our students, along with students who participated. On April 4th, the City of Beverly Hills issued the following proclamation. Do you want to hold up our proclamation? Which declared April 13th to be Youth in Government Day. And we are so excited to recognize our students. A special thanks to Horace Mann, Assistant Principal David Fulberry, and our 8th grade teachers, some of whom are here this evening, Ms. Jillian Mitchell, Mr. Robert Kroll, Marissa Long, David Ziskin, who really have championed and supported this program. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Lusang.
Good evening, everybody. This is easily one of my favorite events of the school year. It's such a wonderful experience to see the students participate in their mock city council meeting. And I realize they're not children anymore. They're young adults, and they have these great ideas, and they're interacting with each other. And sometimes I hear back from the city officials, and they say, well, the students discuss the same types of solutions that we would have discussed in our meetings. And so that's really a wonderful thing to hear from our 8th grade students. And just experiencing the meeting is so fun. It's so wonderful to see. Let me read you the writing prompt that the students had to answer, and then we will introduce the students to you. So this year, we wrote about, I'll just read you the prompt. In these stressful times, the City of Beverly Hills is trying to beautify its surroundings while growing its community spirit by creating an area reserved for a public garden. Residents may rent lots and raise plants of many varieties, showing off their creativity while meeting with neighbors to build community connections. So here is the prompt. Explain the virtues of having a Beverly Hills community garden. What would it add to the city, and how would it help the residents? Where would you locate such a garden? How much land would be allocated for this purpose? How would you attract Beverly Hills residents? How should potential gardeners be selected? How large should each plot be? What sort of parking or transportation would you supply? Considering California's drought, how would you take water conservation and recapture into account? How would this affect local businesses, residents, and the image of Beverly Hills? What should the city do with the revenue? And it was wonderful to see that our children considering using revenue to help those that were less fortunate. So some of the students were saying, oh, well, if we plant vegetable gardens or fruit gardens, we can send them to a food bank, or we can make sure that people that are homeless or hungry have meals. And that was probably one of the better ideas, not ideas, but something that just kind of spoke to the love and the kindness that our students have, that we've really been developing in our students along with academic success, this balance. So without further ado, I will introduce our students to you. Some of our students were not here. I got emails from some parents that they had tests this evening, and so they wanted to stay home and make sure they're prepared for their tests. But for those of you that are here, we invite you to come up, please. Maya Mejia was our mayor. I don't see Maya. Joshua Katz was our vice mayor. Sasha Avakian was our city council member. Shayna Eastman was a city council member. Riley Medazadeh was a city council member. Julia Mandel was a city treasurer. Gabrielle Cohn was a city manager. Joshua Glettner, our city attorney. Paula Santos, city clerk. Nikki Pora Brahim, police chief. Madison Heller, fire chief. Ilan Farahi, department director, community service. Sam Simonu, department director, community development. Haley Miller, Department of Public Works. Samuel Wolf, Recreation and Parks Commissioner. Scotty Frankel, Public Works Commissioner. Can I ask the board to please take a picture with us? Come along. Oops. Oh, maybe this way is better. Mr. Foldberry, no youth and government event would be complete without you. Will you please join us?
Was it fun?
Nicely done. Those were so good.
Have a nice day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, let me get out of the picture.
Colleagues, we're at the consent calendar. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items G, H, I, and Q.
I'll second that.
G, H, and I, and Q. Motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mrs. Hacker. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. So the first item pulled is item G.
I'll make a motion to approve the student teaching agreement with Loyola Marymount University.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mr. Goldstein. I asked that that be pulled. I had some questions about that. I'd like to know, is this a new program? Has this been in effect before?
I can simply speak to the fact that we have had an agreement with Loyola Marymount in the past. Generally, when student teachers have a need for placement, the university will approach us, and so in this case, Loyola Marymount has approached the district for an agreement, and so that's what you see before you.
And am I to understand, I tried to read this, there's a payment of $25 to our teacher? Is that the way that that works?
I apologize, Mr. Spitz. It's, I will defer to Dr. Breggy. It's an HR question.
So it's my understanding that that is a payment that's made by the university to
Right.
the cooperating teacher.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I see. Is there any, do we have any idea of how many student teachers there will be involved in this?
It depends every year.
Yeah.
It depends on the number of students. It depends on the number of placements. It's ironic that you are bringing this up because we just had a discussion at our cabinet meeting this morning that we really would like to have a robust program with some just a partnership that we can depend on each year with specific universities. Right now, it seems to be kind of the other way around, where we're being approached by various universities, and we had a great discussion today about really looking at high caliber schools in the area and establishing a long-term partnership with them and really get a good look at the type of program that the students are actually going through. So it, to answer your question, it depends every year. Sometimes other districts in the area are also very willing to give out spots. So it changes every year.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that?
Just real quick, it's also been my experience with this that a lot of times, let's say if you have a student at Cal State Northridge, but they want to do their teaching, you know, the practice teaching closer to home, and they live on the west side, they'll request a west side school, and you may find that. So that may account for the different universities at different times making the request upon Beverly Hills, because that student that's working towards their teacher credential may reside close to the district.
Right.
I'd like to just also add that we also, like many times, look at it as like we're helping a university, but this is a really good partnership. This is, we benefit just as much as the students that we get. It's really good for us to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening in our college classrooms and some of the methodology behind some of the classes.
Good. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is item H. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve speech and language student clinical practicum agreement with Cal State University Northridge.
Motion by Mr. Margot.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldstein. I ask that it be polled. Is this a similar program or?
Yes. This is a very similar program, and in fact, this is a very difficult area. This is a hard to fill position, and so this is a really important relationship that we're establishing.
Okay. Any further questions about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is,
I'll move to approve the service agreement with USC Rosier School of Education to provide differentiated curriculum and instruction.
Second.
motion by Mr. Goldstein, second by Mr. Margot.
I had asked to pull that. Is there anybody else? Okay. So I had a question earlier, which I think was answered. Yes. Has the PD taken place already, and is it for this year? I think this.
It has not yet taken place. It's for the remainder of this year.
Okay, so here's what I went back and looked at all the gate approvals that we've done through this board, and in August 2016, professional development, we approved the budget for the year, and for professional development, we approved $36,500 for professional development, as I said, and so we have 29 days left for school to end, and so I'm just kind of wondering why $20,000 of that $36,500 hasn't been used, and how is that training with 29 days left on the calendar going to be effective, because the program will then conclude?
Hi, so what we typically do is we have our spring PD, and then towards the end of the year after school lets out, the teachers get days to actually rewrite their lesson plans to embed the GATE instructional strategies into their lessons. So it happens at the end, and then they get planning time. and then they're ready to start again with brand new lessons in the new school year.
Right, but I asked if the PD was for this year.
It is for this year.
So it is for this year, so it's for 29 more days, right?
Mhm.
So the school year is ending.
This is our cycle. This is the gate cycle, is that we do the PD at the end of the year. During the summer, the teachers get time to rewrite whole units, rewrite whole lessons given based on the training that they've had from the USC professors, so that in the following year, they can start off with brand new written lessons.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
So is it fair to say it's a reevaluation of primarily the coursework and what was offered?
It is. So basically, when I've been doing research on teacher professional development, or even when I talk to Dr. Kaplan and Dr. Manzone, one of the goals is for our teachers to develop individual relationships with these researchers and these teachers. So even during the school year, because of our ongoing relationship with USC, our teachers can send their lesson plans to Dr. Kaplan and say, what do you think about this? You know, even outside of a contract, because we've had such a long relationship with them. They'll call them and they'll give them feedback on their lesson plans. And so the second thing is that, yes, if I'm a teacher and I've tried this lesson on questioning and it didn't really work for me, I can come back and I can ask more questions, or I can say, well, how can I make this more complex? Or I have these kids that wanted to do this, what am I doing wrong? So they can continue to reflect and refine on their practice also.
So is the program then being defined in the last 29 days for next year?
It's a program.
Because I know that you asked for an increase. Like, there was a considerable increase, I think, in the GATE budget altogether from last year.
No, I've never asked for an increase.
I mean, altogether, the budget did increase slightly this year.
Not to my recollection.
Because I think we were going to include more students. I think that was the reason. I remember asking about this. So I'm just trying to understand if there was more students added to the program, and we have 29 more days. I'm just trying to see if, is this setting up the program for next year, or is it part of this year, as far as the PD goes?
You know, it's ongoing. I think part of that might be why it's somewhat confusing. We have had a contract with USC now for several years in order to train our teachers, and so they continue to come back to us and work with us throughout the year, and then it helps us in terms of planning for next year as well.
Okay, so basically it's fair to say that PD is always, the monies that are allocated for this year's budget is for next year's program. Is that a fair statement? Because in essence, that's what you've said.
Yes, yes, you could say that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll oppose.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the professional service agreement with Darren Dorschel, Systems Integration Consultant, to provide oversight of IT installation projects related to modernization.
Thank
Second.
you, Mr. Goldstein. Second by Mr. Margot. I ask that that be pulled. I can understand this need. It's pretty clear. However, Mrs. Latham isn't here to answer my question. I don't know whether anybody else can. I'm curious to know whether this amount of $110,250 is in our budget. I suspect it is not.
We've coordinated with facilities, Mr. Spitz, and they approved us including the line item for the amount. So it's in the budget, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
It's a Measure E funded expenditure.
Okay. All right. Any other question on that? Comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And
Thank
that
you.
thank you. That brings us to the superintendent's report, please.
So I want to give a really grateful thank you and acknowledgement to our PTA council that worked so hard, that put on such a wonderful recognition for our Apple Award winner teachers and staff members. That was terrific. It's a whirlwind now to the end, and so there is a series of music performances and open houses, so I encourage everyone to go out and attend. This week we have Horace Mann. Tomorrow night, Thursday, is open house at Beverly Hills High School, and exciting week ahead.
Student board member report.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz.
Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you. As most of you probably know, former President Barack Obama recently spoke at the University of Chicago, actually yesterday, at 11 a.m. And the main theme of his talk was getting the next generation, so my generation and generations to come, more involved in civic life, in political participation, and really, inspiring the next generation to care about our democracy. So I just want to read a quote from what he, from something he said yesterday. We have some of the lowest voting rates of any democracy and low participation rates that translate into a further gap between who's governing us and what we believe. The only folks who are going to be able to solve that problem are going to be young people, the next generation. And I've been encouraged everywhere I go in the United States, but also everywhere around the world, to see how sharp and astute and tolerant and thoughtful and entrepreneurial our young people are. A lot more sophisticated than I was at their age. And so the question then becomes, what are the ways in which we can create pathways for them to take leadership, for them to get involved? Are there ways in which we can knock down some of the barriers that are discouraging young people about a life of service? And if there are, I want to work with them to knock down those barriers and to get this next generation and to accelerate their move towards leadership. Because if that happens, I think we're going to be just fine. So I think a program like the Youth in Government that we honored today, the people that participated in that, having those kind of programs is actually really, really crucial to our school district and to, in some small part, to the future of the country and the world. So really having these opportunities, even me as a student board member, and being able to participate in these kind of, public forums and, a taste of our democracy, that we usually take for granted, but, in some ways it's still something special. So having these kind of opportunities is really important, and I think we should definitely, continue to support all these opportunities that that can get students involved in, civic life. But on a different note, I just wanted to touch upon some of what my friends and teammates said about the academic decathlon. I don't know what the status of the decathlon or what Acadeca will become or is or whatever, but I think we heard Sabrina and Ms. Chu, and I myself will vouch for how life-changing the experience is and how important of a program that is to our students, and what an impact it can have upon someone's life. So in the future, hopefully, it will have as much as it's getting now in support or even greater. And then also, just in terms of things coming up, like Dr. Breggy said, open house on Thursday. We'll have jazz band performing, or at the high school, open house at the high school. We'll have jazz band performing, we'll have dance company, theater, ASB, and clubs all over the second floor patio. So it should be fun.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. By the way, in President Obama's remarks at the University of Chicago, he said something else that resonated with me. He made a recommendation, and it was, when you listen to others, listen to understand rather than to respond, which was, I thought, good advice. We are at Educational Services, item 11A, need an approval of Tobacco Use Prevention Education Grant, MOU. May I have a motion? I'll make the motion. I move to approve Tobacco Use Prevention Education to UPE Grant MOU.
I'll second.
Motion by Spitz, second by Mr. Margot. Now, discussion. Superintendent, do you have something on this? Oh, here we are.
Good evening.
Mr. Hertz.
Just want to thank Dr. Tedford for spotting this grant opportunity for our district and encouraging me to apply with the consortium.
This is additional funding for us. We have a short presentation for you to provide an overview of what this grant is, how it could benefit the district, and what the requirements are. And so the TUPE grant, or Tobacco Use Prevention Education, did I get that right?
That's right.
Right, is a grant that has actually been available and then not available, and then now it's available again through state funding. And so the state has made it available to county offices. County offices then have come to districts, inviting districts to apply. Mr. Hertz has spent a great deal of time on that. And we're here to present that information to you. So, oh, this is really small. We apologize. Okay, we're going to talk through this entirely too small budget, but we have it attached for you as well. I think it's easier to see. You want to talk that through a bit, Mr. Hertz?
Yeah, so the top line are stipends for teachers to open their classrooms after school. That's an integral part of the grant. Is that in fact, this is a good follow-up on student board member Schwartz's comments about students being engaged. What the teachers of the Link crew, the service learning teachers, and the health teachers will do is encourage students to do a multimedia campaign where students message and broadcast to each other an anti-tobacco curriculum. They think that's part of the grant. They think that's more powerful than necessarily the health teacher espousing how tobacco is bad for you, but to have students speaking to each other. So it has a leadership component to it. The next part of the budget, if I can read it even from up here, is, I'm so sorry, is I'm going to get closer. I'm so sorry, I didn't know it was going to be small like this. So the next line item are actual cost for the health classroom. And then the next piece also are materials and supplies for the students. And then the non-capitalized equipment would be the expensive part, where the students would have multimedia computers. And this was a part of the grant that we were encouraged to include so that the students would produce modern, not just your poster board stuck to the wall. And I'm thinking I can get Mr. Jackson to please post those on his website for our students to enjoy. And then the last piece is an annual conference travel where the students will go to LACO, where they'll participate in rallies to suppress tobacco use. And then finally, the last piece are some support services that LACO will provide us. There's a small cost that they're charging us. And that's the grant in a nutshell.
So the state and the county provide guidelines in terms of what the required expenditures are and the categories. The amount of the grant, you'll see for each of the years, it really totals, it looks like it's about $61,000. And so these budget items are really estimates in terms of what we expect the expenditures to be, but should the grant be approved by you, we would then need to convene staff to really sit down and provide the details of this and then bring those expenditures back to you for approval each time. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Schwartz?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for all the effort that you guys have put into this. I think that smoking is something that hopefully no one will have to do in the future, and hopefully this program will help take steps towards educating people. I do have a question though. Is this for tobacco-specific smoking, like cigarettes, or does this also include, weed, e-cigs, vaping?
It's anti-tobacco curriculum, anti-tobacco focus, but we know with vaping, that's sort of a gateway to vaping other types of drugs, but it is a tobacco curriculum.
Okay. From a student's perspective, tobacco at Beverly, I don't think is as big of a problem as it might be elsewhere. There are some students who smoke cigarettes, traditional cigarettes, obviously, but much more pressing and much more, relevant to our community is the use of Juuls, so JUUL. Those are, I think, electronic cigarettes that are almost pure nicotine, I think. There's recently, I wish I had the most recent edition of highlights with me, because the front page was just a picture of the jewel, and the centerfold was also an article about it. Also, more than cigarettes, weed is a much bigger problem than traditional tobacco use. So if there's a possibility in taking this money or whatever and putting it towards, maybe education against, jewels, e-cigarettes, vaping, weed, I think that would be a much more effective use of the money as opposed to traditional tobacco cigarettes.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
So it begs the question, is it just limited to the tobacco use, or can it be expanded? I think that was the crux of Mr. Schwartz's commentary.
What we found with the curriculum that we looked at is that they tend to provide all of those areas in the curriculum. They seem to include far beyond just tobacco, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, Sam, because I really haven't seen the curriculum that we looked at included far beyond just tobacco. We know students are engaging in all kinds of behaviors, risky behaviors, which is already a component of our health course. What this allows us to do is sort of expand that focus so that we can include it in our service learning course and other programs such as Link Crew to provide a broader message around that. So I think it would be easy to include a broader curriculum. So thank you.
It's such an important health topic. I see that the California Healthy Kids Survey rears its head again. How is that going to be incorporated into this?
We provided a board update to you, and we also provide it here, and this is why we wanted to bring it to you, because we know that historically there were concerns about that survey, but we recall that they were primarily focused on 5th grade, and we wanted to make sure the board was approving of us implementing this required survey in grades 9 and 11. And so it is required by the state to implement it. I believe it's biannually, right, every other year. And it is a required component. So if the board approves that, but again, we wanted to come to you first for approval.
Great, thank you. I look forward to seeing how it's going to be administered to the students.
Thank you. I had run into Chris the other day, and I had a couple of concerns about the program, and I think that in its core it means well. Sam touched upon a little bit of it, and I had written it down as a question, but is tobacco use our biggest problem here at the campus? Probably not, but I think awareness that can be translated to other areas is awareness. So therefore, it'll find its way to be successful, hopefully, the people that get behind it and run with it and adapt it properly to our campus and our culture. But what I don't see, and I really haven't seen, and I've been thinking about it more and more lately, is what kids are eating and drinking. And we don't address that. We kind of sweep it under the rug. I saw a student today with their lunch from the cafeteria, which was nothing that a human being should be eating, basically. And we are getting smarter and smarter as a community, as a health-driven community, especially in Southern California, about what the right choices are that we make. And I know teenagers tend to be invincible in some ways and think along the lines of that, but everybody grows up and things catch up to us, even starting with the freshman 15, right, in college. So what I would encourage, if there's any other programs out there that can address that, because I think it may not be a popular conversation, but if we are going to be leaders and create leaders as a community, it's time to start taking a hard look at that. The damage that let's say, cola does to the human body, and take it seriously, and at least recognize it, and not be not allowing ourselves to be hypocritical. That if we ingest these certain things that we know are bad for us, at least be conscious of the fact, yeah, I do know these are bad for us, or we know these are bad for us. These are the options we had today, whatever. But to start being a little more conscious as a community about food and diet and beverages, and quality of life as we get older and what these things can do to us. So we do it to cigarettes and drugs, but we don't do it to the thing all of us have even more than cigarettes and drugs, and that's food and drinks. So I would like to see something be incorporated regarding that along the line, and even if there are grants out there possibly to address that. Thank you.
Sure, I had some questions along the lines of what Mr. Schwartz discussed. I was just kind of wondering, curious to know, do we have any results about in regards to the what is it called? I'm sorry, the Healthy Start survey?
The Healthy
Kids survey. How, were there any results to indicate that we have an issue with tobacco, drug use in our school district?
We certainly do have those results. They're all posted on the web, publicly accessible. I think our community is a healthier community than most in California, but we weren't precluded from applying for this grant, so I think it was exciting that we jumped on it.
I'm just kind of wondering if that was an issue that you had seen in the last few years as you go through the survey.
Marijuana appears to be a much larger issue.
Okay. And then I remember board member Shauna Hoot had recommended a survey of some sort in lieu of using the Healthy Kids survey for the younger grades. And actually, the recommendation was that we use it and adopt it district-wide. I haven't seen anything come through. Are we not pursuing that?
It's still on my to-do list to take a look and find it, Ms. Hacker, but I can say that this grant requires this particular survey, and it's willing to, and it will pay for the survey.
Oh, yeah. This was just another question related because I saw that the Healthy Kids survey was required for this type of grant if we were to approve of it. So my question was just, in hindsight, just looking back at what was discussed in this dais here a year ago.
I've got about 15 hot folders on my desk, and that's one of them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're at item 12A, Human Resources. Need a motion to approve agreement for employment of Assistant Superintendent Construction Facilities.
I'll make the motion to approve the agreement for employment of Assistant Superintendent Construction and Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldstein. Superintendent, comment?
The only comment I would ask you to consider is that this is a position that since I've been here in the last almost 3 months, we've not had that person here.
It's been vacant.
And so as a vacant, it is not a new position, and so I just want to be really clear that this has been an open position, and we've been very careful as far as recommending to you somebody that we believe has the necessary skills and the loyalty to the school district to really collaborate between what's happening with construction and also with the district team.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, well, we got a few. Dr. Breggy, could you explain, because I received a number of inquiries from the community when they saw this. Obviously, I think the vast majority of those communications would prefer to have Principal Jackson remain as principal. So can you explain why he's not being considered, or why he didn't consider re-upping for another year?
So I was after him for a very long time to continue on as principal, and and he was at a point where he was ready to move on, and but I do know that Mr. Jackson and his energy and his charisma and enthusiasm for public education, that he would be doing something. So I've been in discussion with him for some time to think about the position, and even though he was ready to close the chapter on being a high school principal, which is extremely taxing, and it's a wonderful experience, but a huge time commitment. It's 24/7. He was ready for something else, and Mr. Jackson took the last couple of months meeting with other facilities directors and people that work in construction and maintenance and facilities, and really did his due diligence to see if he would be a good fit and if he would be interested. And we had a lot of discussions along the way about how he would be a good fit for our team and also for our district.
Great. Other inquiries that I got from the community is you have somebody who's a lifelong educator, does have some business background in the private sector, but the position is for construction of facilities. What special skill sets did you note that brought you to make the recommendation for Principal Jackson to undertake this position?
So 2 areas that stand out specifically are his strength in facilitation and communication, and really getting things done. It's really important when you have multiple concurrent projects to have the skills to be able to juggle and handle things happening simultaneously. He is the type of person that is wanting to be in front of people and get answers and have discussion rather than simply accept the status quo or through an email. It's those communication skills that are really important, but there's also a loyalty piece. And this is not to pose any judgment on anybody that's in this position, but when you are managing and facilitating hundreds of millions of dollars in modernization, it's nice to know that the person that's going to be leading in this area has a proven loyalty to our school district and the future of our school district.
Another inquiry that I received, people want to know whether there was a process run for this position.
So this is a position that we did not get a lot of applicants for. We really pushed for, like we have all of our positions that we've opened, to get the very best candidates. As Mrs. Johnson has mentioned many times, that there is so much work that's happening in the state of California that much like some of our hard-to-fill teaching positions, this kind of falls in that same area, that this is a very saturated position as far as need, and so a lot of the people that are in this position they have jobs and they're out there and they're working. I think that for this particular position, early on, it's about the right person and the right skills. This is not something that I wanted to take the chance of going through a comprehensive interview process and getting it wrong. This is too important. Looking back, I don't know a lot of the people, so I won't judge, but I don't think that we've been successful with that right fit over the last couple of years, and I am more confident than I ever have about that we have the right fit now going forward.
Yeah, if you have a follow-up, go ahead.
Well, in a similar vein to that, it says the agreement is for 1 year, just 1 year. So next year, will you be rehiring him for another year, or are you going to conduct an interview process for new candidates?
So at this point, because it's going to be his first year in this area, that we collectively decided that we would do a 1 year, but Mr. Jackson has made it very clear that he is wanting and wishing to stay for the long term. It's an interesting opportunity that he has to be able to oversee modernization for a building in campus for which he was principal. That many people don't have that opportunity in their career. So I know that he wants to see this through for the long term.
One other inquiry that a few people had mentioned, the previous facilities director, I think, was making $180,000 a year. Mr. Jackson is base salary at $200,000. with all the reasoning that you have, how do you justify the additional 20,000 for that position?
So many times when we look at salaries for employees, we look at what just their base salary is. It's not often that any employee in the district will talk about the benefits that they get for retirement or for medical benefits, kind of the total package of employment. Mr. Jackson is technically retired, so some of those additional costs that we would incur for other employees for medical and other cell phones and those other items in a specific contract, those things are all negated. So there are rules with a retirement contract that he cannot make any less than he's making currently. Otherwise, there's a penalty. But in all actuality, he is not charging the district for medical benefits and other costs that we would normally incur for some of our other employees.
Right. And last question. Given his position as assistant superintendent with regard to our construction facilities program, you as superintendent, are you able to tap into his other expertise and ask other educational questions of him? And
oh, absolutely. I mean, to keep Dave around is a benefit for all of us, I think. We also have a very comprehensive interview process. Mr. Schwartz has been helping me a great deal with Friday's interviews. But there's something great about having Mr. Jackson stick around to serve as a mentor to the next principal of Beverly Hills High School, because he will be actively engaged in the modernization program. So people will be seeing him as often as they see him now.
so if you had to classify it, it'll be an employment agreement plus.
I'm sorry, say that again?
An employment agreement plus.
Yes.
You're not just getting a facilities director. But
Correct. So much more than just a facilities and construction leader.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
One more question, if you didn't mind.
Sure.
Sorry, Mr. Varga. I'm not at all questioning Mr. Jackson's ability to get stuff done. I think we've all seen that many times demonstrated. I just wanted to clarify a little bit. When Dr. Breggy, you said something about wanting, facilities director or someone in that position for the long run. And given that Mr. Jackson is already retired and has already come out of retirement for 2 years or so, and eventually, for construction that may last, maybe 5 to 10 years or so, or less or more, and maybe that position will stay assistant superintendent. Given that long-term view, why wouldn't it be preferable to, really look for someone that will stay long-term?
I think that the point in question that you've raised is probably one of the toughest areas, and it's one that the board has charged me with as far as the ongoing change in administrators and people moving on, and it's really it really brings the question to, why do you want to work here? Why do you want this particular position? Because you don't want somebody that's going to be taking the job for a short term. But it's not really something that's tangible. I mean, we try to ask questions, and I've had a lot of discussions with Mr. Jackson about his longevity and his wishes for the future. And it's pretty tough to gauge that in an interview. However, I do know that this is, as a leader, you always want to put really good sound practices and systems in place, and that takes at least a year to begin to do that. And knowing that he's already proven himself in that area, I know that I hang my hat on the fact that when a leader leaves, and it's a better place when he leaves than it was when he started, that's kind of where I want to be at. And if you look at, and I'll just be blunt, looking back at some people that were in this position in the past, I don't think that I can look back and say that that I would be satisfied with the way that they have left their positions and where we are today. But I know that, and I'm very confident of the fact that whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I hope that this is not a 10-year long construction project, that that we will be in a much better place if he decides to leave then than we are certainly now.
Can I speak now, Sam?
Please.
Thank you. So I applaud the out-of-the-box approach to this position. You had mentioned that he's somebody who can oversee multiple concurrent projects at the same time. Currently, Mr. Jackson oversees over 1,400 multiple concurrent projects here at the high school in the form of his students at the same time, and I think he treats every one of those the same. It is a unique way to keep Mr. Jackson in the district, creative. I'm glad that we went through a process and then had to turn to other solutions and found a solution. That's rare. I'm thrilled to support this. I wanted to, Dr. Breggy, maybe give you an opportunity, because the question keeps coming up, as you have now, this will be the second assistant superintendent that you will officially have fired after Dr. Tedford. What is your hired? No, I said hired. Roll the tape back. What is the plan here for your, maybe with your approach? So it doesn't have to be so in the dark and people are continuing to be suspect about. I just want to give you the floor right now, maybe to address this with the community.
Building your team.
It is definitely building a really solid team. We have a lot of challenges in our future. Everything from our academic program to our financial challenges, and it's really important to have a solid team at the district level. And a lot of this is just simply some alignment of the titles and of the positions. The term chief is really an outdated term. Part of my job as superintendent is to help develop our leaders at the district office to move on to other positions like superintendent. And the position of chief is an interesting title that really doesn't lend itself to somebody who is a leader in a school district, like an assistant superintendent. The other reason is with the assistant superintendent title is that it really allows more flexibility and sharing of some of the responsibility at the district level. There's certainly no day that's ever a typical or routine day, and it's a position where there's going to be things that are going to come along that maybe wouldn't be in the wheelhouse of just being in a chief job responsibility. These are much more open positions so that there's some cross-training of areas, and when you're an assistant superintendent, it lends itself to learning about different areas. So it'll be a much more fluid and flexible team and communication among our team. So a lot of it's that alignment and what the job responsibilities and expectations are.
Thank you.
So Sam, Mr. Schwartz, I also had the same question that you had earlier, and I discussed that with Mr. Breggy, and he was consistent in his answer. For me, I think of our facilities program. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and I think that everyone on this board can say that we are. Just look at our agendas most of the time. It takes a long time to go through the agenda and look at all these change orders, and it's an ever-going project. Just look at Horseman. We're over budget. I think all of us take this very, very seriously, and we would like to have someone at the table negotiating on our behalf and trying to really just be accessible and really have our best interests always. And so for me, it's very simple to support our superintendent in this position to hire Mr. Jackson to be our facilities director. Our assistant superintendent of facilities. I think that I know Mr. Jackson will do a good job because he is very serious and committed in his form and his management style. And so I support our superintendent in supporting this position. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to support this appointment. I was impressed when the subject was discussed earlier that Superintendent Brege had indicated that he has had previous experience in filling this position with someone of Mr. Jackson's background and knowledge and experience. And so I know that Dr. Brege is not coming from using any guesswork in this. I know he knows what he's doing, and also from my vantage point, I'm just very impressed with Dr. Brege's plans and to build the team that he will need to carry this district into a new era of excellence. So I'm pleased to support this. Any further questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 12B. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2016-2017-034.
And a second?
I will second that.
Okay, motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mrs. Hatcher.
Hacker.
Hacker. Did I say Hatcher? Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I just want to ask the superintendent with the thought process, why is the district doing this?
For which part? I'm sorry.
The regarding layoff of the classified, the instructional assistants.
So one of the areas, and this is always, these are always the toughest conversations to have, because we are talking about people and their families, and the positions that they hold are important. One thing that we need to do a better job in is our position control in the district. And many years, the buildings have made a lot of building decisions in order to keep staff, and we really haven't, in the past, been able to really look at that position control, especially in this area when students are exiting the program. And these are our most vulnerable kids. So I do want you to know we are going to be spending a lot of time looking at our programs. We're looking at hiring somebody. Again, this is not a new position, but we don't currently have a leader of special education that reports to work every day and that sits on our team. So we are overstaffed in this area. This is a conservative approach to making some cuts where cuts are needed, even though they're really difficult, and we know that people's names are attached to them and their families. But this is an area that we simply have too many people.
Thank you.
Any further comment?
Yes. So in reviewing this resolution and the next resolution regarding the reduction in hours, I am assuming that extensive research or vetting out was done with current IEPs and justification of these positions.
Absolutely.
I am also to understand that some of these requirements will either be exiting out, graduating.
Correct.
So those are no longer needed as the students that require those services are no longer here. This seemed to be a lot in one shot, and I'm concerned. Also, our IAs have been probably the most revolving door as far as hirees throughout the year. They come and go more than any other staff members for many reasons, and part of me believes that this most likely won't, as much as it'll affect some of the people involved, it should not affect the consistency of the program, because we don't have that consistency anyway, to be honest. As IEPs complete themselves this year, I'm assuming that some of these will have to come back because some of the IEPs will demand an instructional assistant. Is that something that's been looked at?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So similar to our certificated layoffs, it's a process that we're going through to just make sure that we're staffing correctly and not overstaffing. And this is I think in Mrs. Hacker's terms, a correction to the program, which has gone askew and needs to be corrected and balanced.
Correct. This is certainly this program and our services in special education are no different than others in the fact that we do have declining enrollment. So that does impact our special education kids in program as well.
Okay, and then lastly, there will be no, because it always comes back to smack us in the face, we're not going to be out of compliance with any of these, correct?
Correct, absolutely. Okay. And when that is brought to our attention, like this evening, I am already working on that. If there are some people that feel like there is working through your building principles is the best way to start, because that would not be acceptable either.
Okay, so we will dot the i's and cross the t's on these IEPs related to these.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So I had the same questions in line with Mr. Margot, and so thank you, Mr. Margot, for asking those questions. Those were my concerns, and I think you've answered them, and I don't think any of us take any of these decisions lightly. I think they're very difficult decisions to make, but they need to be made so that we are, we are correcting our needs as a district. But I also want to state that it's I feel it's absolutely important that we are not understaffing for IEPs, and it seems like we've already done our the diligence on that regard. Is that correct?
We have.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Maybe, I wonder if we could do a motion for C and D.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Make a motion to approve Resolution 2016-2017-035 and 2016-2017-037.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, second by Mrs. Hacker. Any additional questions on those? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motions are carried. And we are at Business and Finance, 13A. Need approval of a contract with Troy and Banks.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Troy and Banks for the utility reimbursement program.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldstein. This is going to be an audit or survey of our utility services for the purpose of securing refunds, credits, and cost reductions. I'm in favor of refunds, credits, and cost reductions.
Who isn't?
And there is no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I had a question. There's no cost associated with this,
Well,
correct?
only when they
Find
discover that there is an
savings.
area, right, then there is a percentage. But otherwise, there's no cost to the service.
Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Planning and facilities.
I'm going to work a little bit of magic here, Mr. Spitz.
Please do.
Okay, we'll start with items A and B. I'll make a motion to approve the ratification of the agreement with 2015-2016-041 for B2 window plastic covers and the acceptance of the plastic cover replacement project and authorization to file the NOC and release retention.
I'll second items A and B.
All right, motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mr. Goldstein. Any discussion?
Was there any discussion about painting the plywood? We're just going to leave it all plywoody.
You're singing my song.
Dr. Brady signed an authorization this morning to have the plywood painted.
Oh, so I'm thinking like a superintendent.
You
then.
are.
I like that.
I should be getting paid more. I should be getting paid, period.
Fine, we'll double your salary.
Okay.
Any further comment, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Margot, continue.
Okay, I make a motion to approve amendment number 2 to the agreement with environmental audit for the asbestos and lead abatement monitoring services. And, sorry, we'll leave it at that one. That's the high school.
And second.
Motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mr. Goldstein. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14D.
Make a motion to approve the acceptance of the BV school deck waterproofing repair project, and authorization to file the NOC and release retention.
I will second that.
Motion by Mr. Margot, second by Mrs. Hacker. The work has been completed. All punch list items have been resolved. Any further discussion?
Yeah, when will staff and students be moving back into that building? Does anybody know?
I'm sorry, where the deck?
Yeah,
The one that's
building,
adjoined
yeah.
to the deck? Tim, do you know if it's, I thought they were in. Yeah.
So they finished all that work around the base too?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all included in this acceptance.
Right, so potentially even if they may not have moved back in, they are eligible to?
Yeah, they were going to be using it for testing anyway, so
Okay.
I believe
They have.
The principal had already planned on utilizing it.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're at item,
Okay, I'm gonna do a big group here.
please.
Okay, this is all El Rodeo. Make a motion to approve the ratification of the agreement 2015-2016-041 for the additional trailers at El Rodeo. The acceptance, that's item E. Item F, the acceptance of the El Rodeo School Trailer Data Project, authorization to file the NOC and release retention. The acceptance of the El Rodeo School Trailer Miscellaneous Task Project, authorization to file NOC and release retention. Acceptance of El Rodeo School Miscellaneous Plumbing Project, authorization to file NOC and release retention. I, acceptance of the El Rodeo School Playground Equipment Installation Striping Project, authorization to file the NOC and release retention. And the approval of the amendment number 2 with California Access Scaffolding. And finally, K, the acceptance of the El Rodeo School Temporary Chiller Project, authorization to record NOC and release retention.
Mr. Spitz, may I just point out that Mrs. Hacker found a typo in one of these, so when we do the motion, we need to make, I'm sure the minutes will show that it is all.
Is that the correction with Horseman?
Yes, it should
Okay.
not have said Horseman, it should have
Okay.
said El Rodeo.
With the correction, although that is in the transmittal, so I don't believe the actual document has Horseman in the document.
It was just in the recommended motion.
Right.
Right.
But with the caveat that we'll correct it in the minutes to reflect that it should be read El Rodeo and not Horseman. I believe that was.
Yeah, that was correct.
Was that
J.
J?
J.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
That was a
No,
vote.
wait,
We
I'll
have to
second items E, F, G, H, I. G is to be corrected, and item K.
Thank you.
J is
J,
corrected.
J to
Thank
be
you, Mr.
corrected, and item
Thank
K.
you, Mr. Goldstein. Any discussion on any of that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item 14L.
I'll make a motion to approve the ratification of the agreement 2015-2016-041 for the modular units at Horseman. Closeout work. Motion to approve Amendment 17 with WLC Architects for the extra services during construction for revised hardware in Building A. And make a motion to approve change order number 7 with 2H Construction for Building A, and approval change order number 47 with ProWest for the new classroom building project.
So that was item O as well, right?
Yes, L, M, and O.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Margot, is there a second? Did I hear a second? On items L, M, N, and O?
I'll second items L, M, N, and O.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Questions, comments?
Okay, I have some. First item, on item N, the change order with the hardware, I'm sorry, it's item M, the change order with the hardware. I know it's a minor expense of $1,500 for the changes. I'm curious if the changes in hardware said they were to meet district requirements. So I'm just
Yes.
wondering, were the district requirements set forth after? Were they part of our standards, our building standard package that we had done?
We received updated standards about 6 weeks ago from M&O.
Okay.
Their hardware consultant went through and determined all the different components. And this is to take those modifications in keying and hardware and incorporate them into the package for Horace Mann.
So they came through M&O? That's what I was looking for. Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, neither the attachment or the transmittal indicates on the change order with 2H whether they were unforeseen conditions, design errors, planning coordination, or district requests. I believe that we had made a request early that when these came in front of us, these change orders, that we define whether it fell into one of those 4 categories. I'm sorry?
You are correct.
That's twice tonight.
That's twice. That's 2 now.
I should tell my wife, look, I'm sometimes right. So,
It's just an oversight. I think it was, with 16 items, I think we just didn't do it, but we can just bring it back as an information. I can put it in the board connection. So that you can see that.
if we can tack it on and to the Pro West change order too, that when we look at the change orders, I just as a board member like to know whether of the 4 categories they're kind of falling under, and to kind of see the trend that's forming.
And we do have it on Pro West. It's
an attachment. Attachment A.
Where it says reason, it was a description, reason.
Okay.
And that's.
I saw the other attachment. For some reason, I didn't see this one. Thank you for attaching it to this one.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. I'm done. Thank you.
So I had a question on item O. Are we discussing item O as well?
Yes.
So could someone please explain this one to me, please? Because it's very unclear. It seems like we don't have closure on the change orders and it's contingent upon a punch list?
There's 2 things. There are 2 lists. There's the change order list and the punch list. The change order list is what you're approving tonight in number 47. These are items that have been requested by the contractor.
By Pro West.
Mm-hmm.
But have we agreed to them?
We have agreed to them, yes. This is a unilateral change order that's being brought forward by the district. Pro West has not agreed to all of them. That's the difference. Usually when we bring a change order, it's a negotiated change between the 2 parties. This one, we've negotiated a lot of it, but there are about 20 items that are still disputed by Pro West.
Right. That was very confusing to me. That's the way I read it. So thank you for clarifying.
The punch list are not change orders. There are things that
I understand
were
what a punch
done.
list,
Okay.
right? But it's saying that the board could approve a punch list.
Yes, at one point, and we may be bringing it back to you soon, is that once this change order is approved, then we can ask you to let us record a notice of completion with an asterisk that says it's complete except for the punch list.
Right.
And then that starts closing out. All of these things are trying to get it moving towards closeout.
So I don't understand what we're being asked to approve here if we haven't agreed to the change order together with Pro West.
We're asking you to approve the changes unilaterally without their agreement.
Understand. Understood.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't continue to negotiate those items that are in dispute. But there are, and you have a list there of the change orders that we're requesting. I also have Pro West's response, so you can see which ones they agreed to. And Most of the agreement or the disagreement is on the last page, because you go line by line and we've agreed. So we are making progress through all of this.
Okay.
But we need to get some of this paperwork done so we can release some of the funds to Pro West so they can pay subcontractors, so
I
we can
understand.
stop the stop notices.
I do want to say that I really do appreciate that staff went back and lumped all of these as far as, giving us the dates when these contracts started. I thought that was so incredibly helpful, so I really want to highlight that as a positive because it's important to do that, and that was just so well done. So thank you.
Special thanks to Pam for diving into that.
And to Mr. Millard,
It was really, really well done. It's
Both
so
of
helpful.
you together. Thank you.
I also, and if you just indulge me for a minute, because in the 3 months that I've been bringing you these board items, every single time there have been old projects that we're asking you to ratify or look at. And there are even some on this agenda tonight. But I would highlight item 14A and 14L to show you how the process is supposed to work. Most of the time we come to you for the ratification is when we use a procurement method called CUPCA, and that allows the superintendent to authorize the work, but the board still has to approve it. So what we're doing now is we've put a process into place that when we request the superintendent's signature on one of these, we have a draft board agenda item there ready to go. So then we know that the next board meeting, it'll be on there for ratification.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor of items L, M, and O?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried, and that brings us to communications from the board members.
Okay.
We're all good. And our upcoming meetings, we have a regular meeting on May the 9th, and then on June the 13th. And this meeting is adjourned.
That's right. Great meeting. We got through it. It was good. It was a nice stuff on the agenda. Good discussion. I thought so. Okay, good night. Good night. Oh, I heard you found a place to move in? No. No, I'm still looking. Really? Yes. Yeah. It's hard because these are all, 12-hour days, so it's I can only look on the weekends. So this weekend I'll try to find something. Good night all. Thank you. See you later. Are you happy in this place where you are? Otherwise, is that a place that because you could easily find another place where you could go. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I am trying to do.
Hi, how are you? questions and all that stuff, we'll get all
Bye,
squared
Pam.
away.
Thank you.
Okay.